It's always a risk trying something new, isn't it? Maybe you'll go home and tell your friends about the quality of the zucchini and eggplant grilling tonight, or the people you got to sit at the table with, or how you got some insight into what it might have been like for the disciples and Jesus that night, or who knows. We wanted to give you a sense, a feeling, an idea, an inkling of what it might have been like. And I know that I caught that feeling a couple of times tonight. One of them was when we were having dinner and Deacon Karen and Deacon Nancy were reading. I didn't know if I was supposed to be eating or listening, so there was some confusion there. I imagine the disciples were pretty confused, don't you? This was so out of character for Jesus to be talking about these things. I mean, they could tell the time was close, and then he says things to them like, I am with you only a little longer. Where I am going, you cannot come. The food must have gotten stuck somewhere between hand and mouth as they heard those words of Jesus. An unwelcome departure, to be sure. We wanted to give you a feeling, a sense, an understanding perhaps, the beginning of one or the increase of one to what it means to be a disciple, to be totally dependent on the Master. But what we hope you will not go home and say is, we had a play about the Last Supper. Because as you heard at the beginning of our worship, we said over and over again, tonight is the night. And I couldn't help thinking of our Jewish sisters and brothers who will celebrate the Passover first night tomorrow, and will remember that those events of the Exodus so long ago were present, will be present with them in their gatherings. There's something different about remembering in the context of faith. It is not nostalgia. It is not a looking back to how things were. It is a current presence of that which is. We did not say over the bread and cup, when it was blessed and when you passed it to one another, Jesus said 2,000 years ago, this was like his body, this was like his blood. No, we said to one another, the body of Christ, here and now, the blood of Christ in our midst. It's not a reenactment, but a remembrance in the truest sense of that word. To remember means to put things together again, to remember them, to put the members back into a whole. And tonight, in some way, by the Spirit's presence, we have remembered that beloved community. And the essential mark of that beloved community. In the midst of all those big concepts that Jesus talks about in John's Gospel especially, those phrases that do not come easily. Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. And if God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. And I get a feeling that when the disciples heard this at the Last Supper, they said, okay. Where I'm going, you cannot come. But what do you think stuck with them? The simplest and hardest of commandments. Love one another as I have loved you. Jesus sets the example for us as we gather together around this meal of what it means to love one another, what it means to follow him, to wash feet, to put our own needs aside, to count our own pride and sense of dignity not as first place, but to ask always the question, in love, what can I do for you? How can I serve? What is needed? And how can God work through me to fulfill that need? It is not a reenactment because Christ is truly present. Present in this bread and wine, present now in you, present in this beloved community. So I know that whatever you take from this night, it will be the Spirit of Jesus. It will be his presence in you, his love in you, his encouragement to you. We have feasted well, not just on food, but on the presence of one another and on the presence of Christ. We have received once again, as we must over and over again, this holy sacrament, the body and blood of Christ, because we need it. Because in it Christ comes to us as he promised, and we are changed. In that upper room, 2,000 years ago, and in the events that followed, in the next days, the world was absolutely turned on its head. So if anybody tells you that you're crazy for believing all of this stuff, maybe you're the only one that has it the right way up in this upside down world. And the only way you can convince other people of the truth of that, love one another as I have loved you. Amen.
Amen.